everybody. This is a webinar on web accessibility basics. Jonathan DSouza is one of our alum from the IDT program. I can't exactly remember the year that you graduated, Jonathan. I want to say 2010.
Yeah,
Awesome.
December.
December of 2010. He has done this presentation before, but I invited him to give an update. I'm very glad that we are very glad that he has said so, so that he would help us out. So, without further ado, oh, wait. Just so you know, you are muted. You should be muted. And if you have questions, you can either put it in the chat window or at the end of the presentation if we have time. Then we can enable audio and allow you all to ask questions using your microphones. Otherwise, just feel free to just type it in the chat window. And if you don't have a question and you just want to start giving some reactions or chatting, it's fine too. So, without further ado, Jonathan, take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan DeSouza. As Dr. Zeni said, I'm an Emporia State alumni. Go Hornets! I graduated with my master's in instructional design, the IDT department, and I currently work for Park University, that's located in Parkville, Missouri, and I'm an instructional designer there. And part of what I do is I take the content from our content developers or the folks who develop the contents for the class, and I work on it, code it, and I uploaded it to a platform. And part of my job is to make sure everything is accessible for all our students and people with disabilities. So that's why today my presentation is about web accessibility, and I'm going to try to hit on the basics because you can teach an entire course on this. So we're going to go ahead and get started, but before I do, I want to apologize in advance if there's any typos or any spelling errors, or uh, if there are, it's just to check if you guys are paying attention. So I'll go ahead and get started. So our agenda for today, we're going to basically touch on the what, the hows, and the whys of accessibility. What is accessibility? Why is it important, or why do we use it? And how to work with accessibility. And the areas we'll be covering are working with videos, images, text, and HTML. And we're going to go more deep into HTML because I believe this is what you guys do in the IDT program. So we'll be talking about headers, links, tables, and navigations. So I designed this presentation to so it'll fit with the IDT program. Most I will talk about here, you guys can use it in the IDT program or in other courses as well. So let's start with what is accessibility. So when I first started, I was familiar with the term accessibility, but I didn't really know what it was. So what is accessibility? In short, it's basically the practice of making the website accessible or the content that you design accessible. And the keyword is accessible here, and we're going to talk about more about this in the further slides. So, and you're probably wondering accessible to who? So it's with individuals with disability, and not only that, for an individual without disabilities. It goes both ways, and you will see why. Um, so if you're probably wondering what disabilities, so disabilities can be of many types. Oops, oh, I was writing on that one. Uh, Basically, it's visual, and visual disabilities include blindness, people with low vision, blindness of people who can't see at all, low visions, people with bad vision. Color blindness, these include people with certain kind of visual problems who can't see certain colors, and auditory disabilities, that's with hearing, and they range from degrees of hearing losses. And then we have people with motor skill disabilities, cognitive disabilities, seizures, which is quite common, and this is basically caused by flashing or flickering images. That is basically the GIF images. And for more information, you can check out the WebAIM articles. That's the website link here, and you guys can you'll have access to this presentation, so you can check these links out later. So before I start, let me erase this. So I'm going to explain give you a like a real world example of what accessibility is, not in the computer nerd term. So bear with me. So let's say this is our house or our goal, or in computer world, let's say content, but in the real world, we'll say, let's call this our goal. And for me to reach this goal, I need a path. So my path are stairs. So to make it really accessible, I will require another path just so people with different disabilities can or abilities can go through this goal. So I'll have a slide here. So I can have steps and a little ramp here. So ideally, people will think people without disabilities can use the steps, or people with disabilities on a wheelchair can use a slide. But when you are working with accessibility, it's not technically it's not like this. It's basically for both sides. Because let's take me for example. Currently, I don't have a disability, but what if I'm carrying my grocery shopping bags? I can take the steps, probably strain my knees, or I can run up there. Now, what if I'm walking around with a shopping cart? I don't know why I'll be doing that, but hypothetically, what if I'm walking around with a shopping cart? I can't take it up there unless if I want to make a fool of myself. So I'll take it up this ramp here. So as you can see, it both paths work for everyone, unless if this guy can take his wheelchair up here. So that's a real world example of how accessibility works, but now we're going to take it into our field. So let's say I have all my contents here. So for something to be accessible, we've got to focus on three things. Access, which is content can be accessed by all users. As you can see, all these users can access all my content. And navigation, which means they're able to navigate within the content through ease. And you will see what I'm talking about later on in the slide. And the last one is flexibility. This is kind of important. So by flexible, we mean our users must, all the users who are using our platform or accessing a website or a content should have access to the same information. So whatever information I'm able to access, a person, let's say, who has a visual disability should be able to access. And students can choose from various formats. And as you can see, I have different formats here, and you will see in the next slide why this is important. So uh, currently, we use the eCollege platform, and Uh, so we work with PowerPoints and iSprings. This presentation that you see over here, I'm able to navigate through. This is an iSprings. So basically, this is a Flash presentation. And when I upload this in eCollege, I also put a PowerPoint format. So if a student is unable to open a Flash format, he or she can access a PowerPoint format, which looks something like this. So you can see this is a PowerPoint format. So the point is, in case if we have any technical errors or for some reason one doesn't work, they always have access to the other one. And why is accessibility important? Because it benefits individuals with disabilities, and it helps users without disabilities, and it's basically good practice. So the main thing here is equal access and equal opportunity to everyone. So how does it benefit people with disabilities? People with visual, auditory, physical, and speech disabilities can get access to the same information if it's pretty much accessible. And it helps users to understand the content better. You will see why later on. Helps them to navigate through the content with ease, and they can interact with the content too. And users without disabilities, like let's say if I have a temporary medical problem, I fractured my arm or my finger, I have to use some other hardware or equipment which can help me to navigate through my website or content. So, and if the content is accessible, that's going to help me too. And it actually, believe it or not, it actually makes the page load faster. And later on, you will see why. It helps older individuals who are not very tech savvy. And the point here is to make everything simple, easy to access, easy to understand too. And it helps people with cultural barriers too. Now, let's say I'm a foreign student and I don't know much English, and so I can't read like where to go, what to do. So basically, if I look at it, I can get a vague idea of where I can find stuff. Like let's say I don't know English is not my first language, so looking at this, I can basically figure out okay, I can change my slides from here. If I want to search, I can go for here. Oops. So that's how it helps people from different cultures too. And now we're going to go through the hows. So we're going to talk about how to work with videos, working with images, text, and HTML. So our first one is working with videos. And I'm just going to switch to the PowerPoint slide to give you a good example of how this one works. Okay. It's opening on my other video. Okay, so basically this is a video I embedded here, but I can't, for technical reasons, I can't get it to work here. So let me see if I can open this. Okay, so this is one of the videos we created for our grad classes, and this is an introduction video for our ED 500 classes. And to make our video accessible, we got to have captions and transcripts. So and I'll tell you what's the difference between a caption and a transcript. Captions are text versions of the speech. And there are two types of captions, which are closed captions and open captions. So an open caption are the text which is embedded in the video, and a closed captions are the same thing, but they can be turned off. So as you can see in this example, so as you can see, as she's speaking, the text is appearing over here. So let's just say if I'm unable here, I can read the text here, and let's just say if I don't want to disturb anyone around me, I can turn off the volume, and at the same time, I can read whatever she's saying over here. So I don't actually have to listen to her. And I see the CC here, that means closed caption, which means I can turn it on or turn it off. So this is a good thing to have, like when you're designing videos, to keep in mind. It helps people with disabilities, or it can help us to, like the previous example I was talking about. I don't need to listen to her, I can just read whatever she's saying. And transcripts, like whenever I transcripts are text versions of a video. So basically, whatever she says, all the text that you were seeing, we just have it in a document. So if I embed a video in one of my classes that I'm designing, I'll always have a link over here, or they will have access to a transcript. So let's just say for some reason, I think this is a good live example, the video is not working right here. And now if I need to know like what was going on in this video, I needed access to the information in this video, I can just click download transcript. It should open. Okay, so, and this opens. Basically, whatever she was saying, it's over here. Hello, I would like to personally welcome you to ED 500. So as you can see, this was a pretty good live example. So the video didn't work. I wanted access to the information, what she was talking about. I had a transcript, and I was able to access the transcript. I can read the transcript, and I can get the same information what I could have gotten by looking at the video. This goes back to having the same information in various formats. So that's how it helps us. So one information being able to, what information accessed by everyone in different formats. And I think there was another one here. And it helps people with hearing and visual disabilities to obtain the information. And alternate link or access to the video, this is kind of important. So as we know, technology is not 100% reliable. So each time I embed a video, I also make sure I have an alternate link to the video. I can either save that video in a place in the course, can download it directly, or they can just watch it while it's embedded here. So I'll give you a live example for one of the classes I do. It's not this one. So it's this one right here. So I like to go pretty much do fancy stuff with my classes. So like that's a video I embedded over here. So this is a jQuery format I use. So basically instead of the video opening over here, it just pops out and they can watch it over here. Now, suppose this video link does not work or YouTube crashes or something, they can always like click on this link and download the video. So once again, they're having multiple points of access to the same video. And next now, since we're done with videos, we're going to go with images. So working with images is not that hard, but it can get a little tricky. So the first thing you got to do is, like we said, no flashing or animated images, because this actually triggers seizures in some people with disabilities or something. So you want to stay away from flashing or animated images, and then you want to consider adding alt tags or title tags, and we'll tell you the difference between an alt tag and a title tag in the next slide. And you want to add descriptions of the image, and best practice is to provide long descriptions if you can. Use a JPEG or a PNG image, and try to keep your image size by 250 by 250 pixels. When I say 250 by 250, I don't mean like just insert an image and then resize it on the page. Try to make sure you edit the image, save it as a 250 by 250, and then insert it over here. So when you load the page, the image loads faster. So in case if I have a slower internet connection, it's going to take a long time for a big image to load. So once again, like if the image is small in size, it's going to load faster. Coming to the difference between an alt tag and a title tag, like I said. So let's just say if I put an alt tag, this is the function of an alt tag and a title tag. So as you can see, sometimes when you're browsing over web pages, when you place your cursor over an image, this little yellow screen comes up. That's a title tag, and I'll show you later on in the codes how you do that. And an alt tag is basically the same thing, but it's in case if the user has turned off, disabled all images, the description of the images appears. So they can get a vague idea of what the image was about. And similarly, like if the image gets deleted or if there's some technical problems and the images don't show up, the user can find out, can have a basic idea of what goes here. Like as you can see, the image didn't load and it says steaming coffee cup graphic. And this also helps with the screen reader too. Like let's just say if I have visual disability and I can't see images, when the screen reader hits this image, it's going to tell me it's a steaming coffee cup. So I know like there's a steaming coffee cup image which is over there. And this is another example now. How many of you know what this creature is? It's called a cuttlefish. It's like I it's a cephalopod, but I'm going to consider it a cousin of the squid. So if I have a web page talking about cuttlefishes, I'm not telling them what a cuttlefish is. I'm like, all right, this cephalopod species, and I'm using scientific names. And the best way to make this pretty much accessible would be to add like something on the title tag. So if I put my scroller up, my cursor on top is going to say, okay, this is an adult cuttlefish. Or I can put it in my alt tag. So a user with visual disabilities who is using their screen reader, it's going to tell them there's a cuttlefish over there. So let's just say what happens if I don't add an alt tag. So if the screen reader is going, it's going to go, let's say for this slide, it's going to be working with images, alt versus title tags. Then it's going to skip this and it's just going to say there was an image here. It's not going to tell the user with disabilities on what the image was about or how it relates to the information or the text provided here. That's another benefit of the alt tag. You can type information over here, like how this image relates to the content or the text provided on the same page. And when you're working with images, I believe most of you guys use Dreamweaver. So if you use Dreamweaver, like you can just click on the image and type your alt tags here, or you can right click on the image, go to properties, and you can type in your title tag, description of the tag. Or if you're like me, I prefer to do it manual, old-fashioned coding. That's a way you can do it. You can go img src coffee.jpg or .png. Then width you can specify 250, height 285. Keep in mind the original size of your image should be 250 by 285, and then you can add your alt tag. So your alt tag will be the tag, the information right here. So that's what the alt tag does. And I didn't mention it over here, but you can add a space, put title equals quotes, and type in steaming cup of coffee, and that'll give you this, the little window that pops out when you place your cursor over the image. So that's the difference between an alt tag and a title tag. I prefer to use both, but most of the times I'll admit I'm guilty. I tend to forget to use my title tags. So once again, that's how you do it with Dreamweaver. You just click on your image. So once when you click on your image, on the properties at the bottom, this property bar should appear, and you can set your height, width and height over here, add your alt tags over here. And long description. So when you're working with images, sometimes you'll have to use descriptions because it's again a good practice. So let's just say I inserted this image on my web page. Tea leaves, hot water, sugar. So basically, looking at this, first thing it's going to take me a while to figure out that this is a process of how to make tea. But now let's just say I have a visual disability and I'm using a screen reader. I can't see this diagram. And if there is no alt tag, it's not going to tell me what's over here, and I'm not going to know how to make a cup of tea. So let's just say I put an alt tag tea making process, and that's not enough. That's not giving me the same information of what someone who has no visual disabilities can see. So that's when I use a long description. So a long description property thing would be LONG equals quotes, and then type in a description here. So basically, the description would be the same thing, the explanation of this. So let's just say I'm going to put to make a cup of tea, add tea leaves, do hot water, and add sugar, and close my quotes. So if I'm using a screen reader, it's going to tell me how to make a cup of tea too. So as you can see now, if I have a visual disability, I can still get the same information on how to make a cup of tea, just like someone who's not using a screen reader. So that's when a long description property tag comes handy. It's kind of necessary too. This is more important when I'm in my line of work. I use this a lot when I'm working with flowcharts because the flowcharts they all go from here to here to here to here to here, and I can't really put all that information in an alt tag. So I'm going to add a long description tag, and I'm just going to explain the entire flowchart in that long description. And next is working with text. So I think most of y'all are aware that the recommended font are Arial, Times New Roman, and Verdana. That's because I prefer to use these because they're compatible with most browsers. And if you design your content with this, most of the time, like I'd say, like almost 90% of your time, this would come up. Like if I use those other funky fonts, and if I open it in a different browser, it's going to switch it to default one of these. So try to use these font font faces. They are pretty much standard. And font consistency is another thing to keep in mind. Now, the only reason I changed the font here so you can see what's in Arial Times Roman, but just imagine if you had a long document with all different kinds of font. How annoying is that? And the same thing goes with font size. My rule of thumb is I try to stick with one font face and limit maximum like three or four different font sizes. Preferably two, but if you go from like an H1 to an H2, you'll see the font sizes changing. So try to stick with 2 to 3 font sizes and avoid using tiny fonts like this. Like as you can see, if you just go through down through the slide, you can see you can read this. All right, this is okay. A little bit of effort you require, and this you have to go like literally go close to your screen and read this, or have a magnifying glass. And I know like uh, I like using Verdana size 8 because I think it looks pretty professional, like all business-like, but it's really hard to see. So I'd recommend sticking with a 10 or 12 Verdana or any of these. And contrast is another important area to look at when you are using fonts. So if you can see these examples, can you read this? That's pretty clear. Can you read this? No, not really clear. This one is, this is off the charts. So you want to create that high contrast between background and the font. And like we mentioned before, no blinking text because it can cause seizure. It's annoying and it's distracting. So most of the times, like if we have our content here and we have something scrolling here, so while we are reading, we get distracted and we look at that and then we lose our rhythm or train of thoughts. So when you're working with text, be sure to consider these. points. Another one is avoiding colors to convey messages, and we have a hard time explaining this to our instructors. Like, I know most of our instructors, they use these colors, they highlight stuff, and items in red are important. Okay, let's say I'm having a visual disability and I can't I can't see the color red. Let's just say all my life I don't know what a red color is. So how am I going to tell that item 2 and item 4 are in red? Oh, can you hear me? Or is it still okay, problems? Okay. So that's why we advise everyone to just use one black color and mention like try to like stay away from using colors to convey messages. And then another thing when working with a huge bunch of text is to broken down text and or large paragraphs. So what I mean by this is, let's say I got this text right here. So if I use this in my course, I bet by the time student reaches here, they're going to lose their attention. Or over here, definitely they're not going to maintain their attention. Over here, they're going to forget about what happened over here. So this is a good way to design your document. So if you want to use your title tag, which you can, it's up here. Now you can add a subtitle and then try to break it down into different categories, like and group them up, like an introduction, add something here, and add a subtitle, then another subtitle. So this way it's pretty easier to read. Like let's just say if I scroll through this document and I don't want to know about the fox, I just want to go directly to the dog. I can just, okay, so I can spot the dog header over here and then start reading about the dog. And similarly, I can just switch back and forth pretty easily. And as you can see, I gave a title tag over here to this one. That's the title one. And this one is my H1 and my H2. I can give this an H3 too, so to make it smaller. So this pretty much makes your document accessible. So if someone with a screen reader is going, the screen reader can tell him, all right, this is the title. These are your header tags. You can switch through it. And I believe that a person using a screen reader can skip directly from introduction to dog or fox. They can move from paragraphs to paragraphs easily. Now, if we didn't design our document like this and did it like this, the poor person with the screen reader has to hear all this before he or she can actually get through what they're really interested in. So that's why I try using header tags or title tags. And plus, this looks more professional too. It even helps me, like if I don't have a disability, uh, as I mentioned before, I can skip through topics like fox, dog, back and forth. So that's what I mean by breaking down text and using heading tags. Now we're going to talk about accessibilities and HTML. Now, this is a pretty broad topic and we could talk about this for semesters. And so the basic, so I'm trying to compress it all together. So the basic thing to remember to make your web pages or web documents accessible are headers, links, tables, navigation, to focus on these areas, and that'll pretty much make it accessible. So first one we're going to talk about are headers. So headers are using your H1, H2, H3 tags. Basically, it tells it like as you see before in this document, which I showed you right here, this would be my, let's see, yep, this would be my H1, this would be my H2, and these would be my H3. Or I could start here my H1, H2, H3. So what this does is not only it tells me like in the web page what is important and what's not, but it also helps a person with a screen reader. So the screen reader will go from your H1 to H2, H3, H4 instead of going through everything in between. And the person using the screen reader can skip through header tags easily. And plus it organizes your content and provides more structure to your document. Now let me see if I have an example up here. Okay, so that's a That's my Dreamweaver document. That's one of the course schedules I use for my class. So as you can see, that's my title tag. That's my H3 tag, my H4 tag, and my paragraph tags. So let's go to the code and see how it looks. So as you can see, I used my H3s, my H4s. I try to stay up to H4s. The max I would recommend is H5 because then if you go like pretty much keep breaking it down into different categories, it gets pretty confusing. And I would start with an H1, but our e-college system is a bit different because we can't, it's something with the CSS issue. That's why we start off with an H2. But for you, I'd recommend starting off with an H1, H2, H3. So that's a live code example. And working with links, this is kind of a fun topic for me. Providing links to content and or information. Don't say go here or go there. The same goes for click. When you're going through websites, if you hear click here, sometimes the link doesn't work, or if I'm a person with disabilities, my thing is going to read click here and I'm going to say where should I click. That's kind of annoying. So I would recommend, let me give you a little quiz just to see if you guys have been paying attention. So let's say I got three situations here. I'm going to put up, please read the article why blogging is important. Then I'm going to give you the link and the ability to click on this link. We got that situation one. Situation two is what I was talking about. Click here to read the article why blogging is important. And situation three, read the article why blogging is important, and I got a link. So which one do you think is the right answer or closest? I would say there's no right answer. There's the best and the better answer. Well, looking at this, we can say obviously situation three is the best choice to do when you're designing links. As you can see, I said read article why blogging is important, and it's a link. So if I click on this, it's going to take me to the page of the web page why blogging is important. And as you can see, I can't believe I'm actually trying to move my cursor over that. That's the title tag over here. You can see HTTP tech blaster or something. So that's where title tag comes in handy. So if I want to read the article why blogging is important, but I can't see a link over here, that's why I'll just place my cursor up so I can see, oh, this takes me to Tech Blaster. That's my favorite site. Some people argue that this one is the best one. Please read the article why blogging is important because the users can see the link and actually click on the link. But personally, I'm like, no one actually, for me, this is just me, I believe no one actually reads the whole link. So that's why I try to keep my links looking like this. And tables, most important thing, I know people still use this. Do not use tables for layout. Tables, if you check the accessibility sites and the rules and the guidelines of designing tables, so, tables must only be used for data, like over here. And I know like when we design pages, we just create a table, insert some stuff here, put the content over here, and create our web pages. That's really not accessible. So let me give you an example of how the person with a disability or someone using a screen reader is going to access this information. So let's just say I have a table over here. So, and I just put a table over here. So the person with screen reader, it's going to go name, age, major, Tom, 24 business, Kim, 24 science. So with the small table, I can probably remember this, but what would happen if I have like 10 people? So I'm pretty sure by the time I reach to number 5, I'm going to forget what happened to numbers 1 to 4. So, uh, so we have to make our tables accessible. One way to do this is to, when you insert a table in Dreamweaver, you can just highlight it and just click the little header checkbox over here. So it'll bold this thing, meaning it's accessible. So you're defining this as a header tag. So where this will work is the screen reader will go name, age, major, then we'll go to the next header, Tom 24 business, then we'll go name, Kim 24 science. So this table, it's accessible, but not very accessible. And another way you can make it accessible before I move on to the next slide is when you go to insert tables in Dreamweaver, it's going to give you this little box over here, and you can add in how many rows, columns you want, your width of the table, and it's going to tell you to define the header. So like over here, I define this column as my header. So as you can see, it's darkened over here. Or if I want, I can put this as my header. Depends on what your table is about. So you can design your header tags based on that, and just say okay, and it should give you a blank table with this column as the header. So let's just say I have 4 tables, and this is another quiz now. And if you get this wrong, I believe you get minus 10% of your grade. And that's just a joke. I inserted 4 tables using Dreamweaver, and all of them I've used different options. As you can see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I use different ones. So which one do you think is the most accessible? Keep in mind, I'm not saying which is accessible, I'm just saying which is the most accessible. So there's my favorite answer is the best answer. We don't have a correct answer, we have the best answer. So you got table 1, 2, 3, or 4. You guys can take a crack at it. So we got anyone, and we got 3, and number 2. Okay, so before I tell you what's the best answer, I'm gonna go through it as if I'm the screen reader. I don't have much experience with screen readers, but to my best judgment, I'm going to answer this. So if I'm using a screen reader, for this table, the screen reader is going to go name, age, major, Tom 24 business, Kim 24 science. Now if I use this one, it's going to go name, Tom, age 24, major, business, name, Kim, age 24, major, science. This one is going to go name, Tom, age, Tom 24, major, Tom, business. And then it's going to go name, Kim, age Kim 24, major Kim science. And this one is going to go name, age major, name Tom 24 business, name Kim 24 science. So from what I said, I think you guys can get a pretty good understanding of this one. The third one is the most accessible one. And it depends, like if I just have data, sometimes this one might be the most accessible one. Like let's just say I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and my classes. So I'd want to use this one. But in this situation, this table is the most accessible one. So as you can see, this situation changes from time to time. So there's no one correct answer. There's only the best one, the best option that you can use. So that's pretty much how to make tables accessible. And this one is, I wouldn't say this is necessary, but it's fun. And I think it's important. So it's navigation now. As I mentioned in the slides ages ago, that your user must be able to navigate through the content. Let me see if I have an example up here. As I said, your user should be able to navigate through the content with ease. You'll see this in my example I'm able to provide. If I can get this to work. Okay, so should be able to navigate through the content. Let's just say I have this big content page, all this. So if I don't care about accessibility, I will not put this in-page navigation links, which are what I'm going to talk about here. Anchor tags, we call these. I'm not going to put these links. So basically, if these links are not there, the user has to go through the pain and the agony of reading all this, scrolling down. If the page loads and if he wants to go to week 7, he has to scroll all the way down. So to make it accessible and be nice to them, I just created this in-page navigation links. So if I want to go to week 7, instead of going through the agony of scrolling all the way down or pressing my down key 1,000 times, I can just click here. And I have a back to top link, so I can just click up. So as you can see, I can get access to different parts of the page pretty easily. Go week 5, up, week 1, up, week 8, up. So you're probably wondering what's another example of why this is handy. So let's just say we are in week 8 of the course, and I don't want to read all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 till 7. So I just want to know what's happening in week 8. So I just click to this and it goes to week 8. And if I don't want to scroll all the way back up, I just click my back to top link. So those are called anchor tags or in page navigations. And that's how it works. So you give a href, the number sign, and area, and then type in the link. Oops, that would be over here. And then you give it the place for where you want it to stop. This tag is actually over here. It's kind of kind of hard to explain. So what I've done is I've created let me see if I have this open. I'm going to, okay, so I created this for you guys. I'll probably upload it over here somewhere for you guys to download. You guys can play around with this. This will give you a good idea of how this thing works. So this is the code behind it. So feel free to use it however you guys like. That's a resource you guys can use. So as you can see, I put my href here. I'm telling the page like if this person clicks here, go to I1. Where's I1? Over here. So that's my I1. So I stated like go to I1, which is the item name, and then I1 is here. And same thing, it goes to 1 to 8. So as you can see, they have these little anchor symbols. And I'll try to upload this document so you guys can play around with it and get a good idea of what in-page navigation is. And the next one is skip navigation. This is optional, but I think this is somewhat necessary. So skip navigation is basically the same concept like this, but I put a skip navigation over here. As you can see, I made it in white. And I'll show you some examples of websites which do have this. What this does is, let's just say if I have like 100 in-page navigation links here, and if I'm using a screen reader, and I just want to go directly to the content. I don't want my screen reader to read all these links. The first thing when the page loads, it says skip navigation. And if I tell the screen reader to click it, it's going to go directly to the content. So my screen reader does not have to go through all this and read it to me like week 1 link, week 2 link, week 3 link. So I can just hit skip navigation and go directly to the content. It works the same way as we designed this, but we just call it skip navigation. And I think I have an example of how this works. So as you know, in the United States, we are pretty tough on accessibility, and I believe on the old Bank of America page, there was a skip navigation over here, but somehow I'm not able to find it. But I know it's up there, so if I go through the code, and as you can see right down here, they have the ability to skip the page, to skip all this, and go directly to the sign-in, or skip the main content. So this tag is somewhere over here. So if I'm using a screen reader, I can just tell the screen reader to skip navigation, because if I use this site 100 times, I don't want the screen reader to read all this to me every time. I can just click skip navigation and it'll take me over here directly. So as you can see, this is the main part of the page over here. I just want to log in. And as you can see, these are two HSBC sites. I think this is the global one and this is the United States one, the HSBC. I wasn't able to find skip navigation in the global one because I think it's not very accessible. However, in the United States, they have to make stuff accessible just to avoid lawsuits and to follow best practices. I believe there is a skip, you see. So it says skip through page header and navigation. So there's a skip navigation over here. It takes them directly to, I don't know where this takes them to, but I believe they can skip all this stuff and go directly to I can't find the point of this page, but as you can see, the point is they're using skip navigation tags here too. So this is something nice to have on your page, is a skip navigation thing, and probably I like to keep it like invisible, like white, because people without disabilities, they don't need to see that. And clean HTML, you want your HTML to be clean behind the scenes, no excess spaces, no special characters. I think you guys have seen this, like when you're designing pages, when you preview it, you have that A, E something, or A with a circle on top. Let me give you a good example. So I call this bad coding. So as you can see over here, I have like excess spaces. I didn't use, I defined all my font tags over and over and over again. I I have randomly, I have open font, close font, p tags just flying around left and right. So uh, it's a good practice to clean your HTML to have it look something like this. So you can see I just specified here h4, this ol, li, my p tags are pretty much clean, and this is not very clean. I think this one is cleaner. There you go. See, this is what I mean by excessive space. It doesn't show up here, but if you go in the code, you can see it over here. It doesn't do anything, but for a screen reader, I believe it takes time or something. So you want to get rid of all those excessive spaces. The common excessive spaces you will see is towards the end of a sentence, like right over here, there'll be a space, but it doesn't show up over here. It's mostly over here. It looks something like this. So you want to get rid of all your excessive spaces. And basically a clean HTML, so let's get rid of this too. So, and another way, how does this help is, let's just say if I have a problem with my web page and I don't have Dreamweaver, if I go to the code, it's going to make it easy for me to find out where to go to make changes. It makes it easy to read the codes too. And then we have validator checks. There are different validators we use. I believe we have examples here. Yeah, these are different validators I use to check if whatever I'm doing is accessible. So we have the wave validator. This one is to check for websites. So let's say I want to see if Google is pretty much accessible. I go to google.com. So it'll tell me 9 errors. I don't know that. So see, it tells me like what errors are there on the site. So let's go on. Let's check our report. Put this on the. It'll be fun to check out. Oh, sorry, that's Infora.edu. I'm like, what's this?
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, okay. So you can't be perfect. Like these are just alerts and features and structures, but you got to try to avoid these ones, the main ones, the one error. And I don't know, they changed it. So, oh, see, it's missing an alt tag. Tell you it's missing an alt tag over here. So that's why here I put my alt tag buzz around something. And then similarly, you have another ones, functional accessibilities, high software. This is the one which I use to check my work. So I can upload the file or paste in HTML. So let's take out this one, the one which you guys are going to get, like this one. Let's take this HTML and see how accessible it is. I just copy it, I paste it over here, and let's check it. And as you can see, it's so, oh, I got errors too. Oh, these ones. I believe if you take this out, it should be fine. The default stuff which Dreamweaver puts. And let's take our bad coding example. It should give me a ton of errors. Yeah, it's telling me, tells me what my errors are. I just have like empty tags, and then I got to go in and correct it. So this is one good tools to use to evaluate whatever you're doing. And I believe we're running out of time. That's my last slide. Some tips and suggestion is plan, plan, and plan. I know I give this advice, but I'm horrible at it. I like to learn the hard way. I do stuff, find out the errors, and then again I do it. I do it. Yeah, so I don't plan, plan, and plan. But I'd recommend you to plan. This is a lot of. It saves you a lot of time. So just plan whatever you want to do. Write it out, uh, graph it, draw it out, and then figure out how you're going to make it accessible, and then design it. And try doing one page at a time. Basically, our goal is to keep everything simple and easy to understand, regardless of user caliber. So this one, if someone who's a PhD can read this or understand it, I want someone who's in fifth grade or sixth grade to look at it and understand it. So try to keep things simple. And a no mouse test, that's basically if you hit the tab key, it should take you through the entire web page in order. Like, see, my first thing is a print. Oh, here, here, here. Basically, the tab test is I don't have to use a mouse. I can just hit access the web page via the keyboard. And preferably, you can use CSS style sheet. I used one over here. Basically, I have a style sheet and it, not this one. My style sheet tells me to define all my title tags this color, all my fonts one size, same color, and test your pages using different browsers. I think I have an example over here. I see on Firefox, course banner does not appear, but everything seems to be working. And on Internet Explorer, my course banner shows. So it's probably like some tag issue or the browser is acting funny. So that's why you see that's the reason why the alt tags and the title tags come in handy. So like right now the thing didn't appear, so uh, the alt tag saved me over here. And we're not going to get it perfect, so our goal is just try to get it close to perfect. And the important thing is why do we work on accessibility? Why is it so important? Because first things is it costs a lot of money to make things accessible. It takes a lot of time, as you guys have seen. So why do we do it? Uh, I believe the only reason we do it is because it's the right thing to do and it helps us out. And that's the works cited from where I got all my stuff. These are important links. Uh, this is a pretty good website. I would recommend checking this out. WebAIM Section 508, this one too. I gained most of my accessibility skills from this site right here. It tells me the standards, and I'd really recommend saving this on your bookmarking this site. I believe this is it. Yeah, this one and oh, this one too. I learned how to make tables accessible using WebAIM. And that is it. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, okay, we got questions here. Does working with Dreamweaver make it easier to make the pages accessible, or would you recommend writing the codes? I would recommend using Dreamweaver because it's faster. Like if I had to, I don't have an example of a table here, but if I had to insert a table, like in Dreamweaver, see I can tell it make the header tags, define this a row and this column as a header tag, and it defines it already. And as you go over here, you can see it says TH, that's the header, scope column, scope row. So I would recommend using Dreamweaver because if I do this manually, sometimes I'll forget to define a column and a row and the whole table will be messed up. So that is why I recommend using Dreamweaver. And personally, I know people talk bad about Internet Explorer and they say Internet Explorer is for evil people or stupid people, whatever. But in my experience, I always check my web pages with Internet Explorer because it's a little less unforgiving. Like if there's an error or something, IE will pick it up. It'll show you all these funky characters which are not appearing right now. IE detects all these weird characters like all these blank spaces, but Firefox and Google Chrome not that much. So I'm a Firefox user, but I always use like all browsers to check my work, whatever I do. Mm. Any other
Questions for
questions?
if you can think of any. He has his email address there.
Yep. Feel free to email me or text me, call me, and I'll try to answer the questions as best as I can.
Not sure if Lori has a question.
Listen.
But either way, feel free to stay and ask any questions. Either way, thank you everybody for watching Jonathan's presentation on web accessibility. Um, After this is finished recording, I will post the link in Blackboard in our class IPA 30, and as well as the PowerPoint itself. And just so you know, as mentioned, as well as questions from this presentation.
Thank you,
So,
everyone.
you all who are here have the advantage, and those who aren't able to watch will have to watch the recording. Okay, so again, thank you, and feel free to stay for a little while. Jonathan, anything else?
No, I'm done.
Okay, any other
Mhm.
questions?
Nope.
Finished. Thank you, Jonathan. As always, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you
Good
guys
job.
later.